Would you believe me if I told you you could make a brownie that was not only ooey, gooey, delicious, rich, and extra chocolatey, but it was vegan and gluten-free? No? I'm gonna prove it to you. Let's get baking. Today I want to show you how to make a chocolate brownie that's vegan and gluten-free, but we're gonna step it up a notch. We're gonna add a layer of a chocolate ganache. And even though it's vegan and gluten-free, no one's gonna care because it's gonna be so good. First thing we're gonna need is our flax egg. So we've got our ground flax, that's 3 tablespoons, and we're gonna add half a cup of water. We're gonna give it a little stir. And we're doing this first because I want this to set up and get almost like gel-like. You'll see this a lot in gluten-free baking because it acts as a great egg binder, and it's not chemically made like Just Egg, which I do love and I do use in a lot of my bakes, but sometimes I just want something a little more natural, so the flax egg is a great alternative. And sometimes you can just put it right in like that depending on what you're making, but most recipes you'll see will suggest setting it aside, let it get nice and gel. So that's what we're gonna do here. All right, so while our flax is setting up, I'm gonna mix the dry ingredients. So we've got 1 cup of our gluten-free flour, 3 cups of cocoa powder, and then I have 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour, and then just a pinch of salt. So let's get that all just mixed and combined. Pretty simple, right? Not a lot of ingredients so far. Tapioca is gonna help us get that nice gooey texture. Okay, so we have our dry ingredients. Let's get our wet ingredients combined. All right, so now we want to combine our sugar with our remaining wet ingredients. So I have 1 1/4 cup of sugar. So next, let's get the applesauce in. Quick note, this is one of my favorite little tricks. You've probably heard me mention this if you've watched my fig breakfast cookie video. This recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of applesauce, and this is about a 1/2 cup of applesauce, these little pre-made containers. I just always make sure I recycle these when I'm done, but I just find them to be very useful. And you waste a lot less applesauce when you have to just use a portioned out size than a big jar of applesauce. So let's just get that in there with our sugar. And then we're gonna add, this is a 1.5 tablespoons of vegan butter melted. And I like to get that all in there. The vegan butter is important here because even though we're using the applesauce, which is usually a replacement for a lot of recipes for butter, I still think this one needs fat because we're trying to make a nice ooey gooey brownie. So the little bit of butter is gonna help us. Okay, and then we have a 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Throw that right in. And then finally, we have our flax, which has set up just enough. There's still some water on the top, but that's okay. I think it's nice and jellified enough, you can see. So let's get that in there as well. Looking really good. Okay. Start off at a slow speed. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. Wanna make sure our sugar gets nice and dissolved. All right, excellent. Let's lift this up. Take a look. It's looking good. So now all we have to do is add our dry ingredients. So I'll just add a little bit right now, less than half, just to get it going. And definitely start it off on slow speed so it doesn't blow up. Now I can slowly increase it. And slowly add the rest here while it's going. It'll be real slow here though if you're gonna do it while it's whisking. See my little clouds of cocoa powder sneaking up. And I only add more in as I see it's getting super wet. You don't wanna add dry on dry. once we have it all in, we'll increase the speed. I'm inhaling cocoa powder. All right, we're almost there. And that's what we want. It is thick, because that's how we want our brownie to turn out. So don't be afraid if you're like, oh God, do I need to add more liquids? Like, no, we want it exactly like this, very thick. Almost like it's frosting. Okay, I'm gonna let some of those dry ingredients get a little more blended in, and then we're gonna increase the speed for a minute or two. Looking good. And stop it for a second. Let's get the sides cleaned up, because I don't like losing any ingredients. Okay. All right. I think that is looking good. Let's take a closer look. Yep. Exactly what we want. Slow drip means it's nice and thick. There we go. All right, so we're gonna put this aside and get our pan together. So I have silicone pans, which I think are gonna be really helpful because we're adding ganache on here, so I want it to be able to pop out easily. Sometimes with brownies, a silicone pan's not the ideal choice just because you want it to get crispy on the outside. And I'm afraid with this, it might be too soft, which is ideal for like muffins and cupcakes. So what I've done is I've added some parchment paper, and I'm going to give it a little oil so that we make sure not only there's no sticking problems, but that it gets a little crisp on the bottom. Because we don't want to lose that crispness, but we definitely want our ganache to come out easily as well. And I'm probably just setting myself up to be known as somebody who's just way too overly cautious when they prep their pans, because I know that a silicone pan is pretty much non-stick. So I'm gonna use this as my scooper, but we wanna keep in mind that we wanna leave space for the ganache that we're gonna top on here, so we're really not gonna fill these up too much. That looks pretty good. Let's give it a little slap down. Make sure it's covering the bottom. We're gonna start with 20 minutes to bake these. I'll check it around then to make sure they're not burning and also that they're finished. And now we're gonna do that at 350. These actually ended up taking only about 17 minutes, so make sure you're checking your bakes occasionally. All right, those are good. There's enough space on there on the top. So, yeah, they look great. So we're gonna let these cool, and while they're cooling, we're gonna make our ganache topping. We'll start with half a cup of our vegan cream. I'm not sure if we need all of it. And that's it. So our ganache is ready. It's piping hot. These have cooled a bit. They still could cool a little more, but that's okay. After we put our ganache on, it's gonna go in the freezer. I did push these down a little bit to cheat some more room for the ganache. And you can see, I'm expecting some of the ganache to fill around the edges too and maybe drip down the sides, which actually sounds amazing. So I'm okay with that. So yeah, if for some reason your brownies bake up a little higher, just when they're still a little warm, just give them a little push down. All right, and let's go ahead and add this ganache that we just made. So this was about half a cup of vegan creamer with 6 ounces of our dark vegan chocolate. Look how delicious that looks. So let's start spooning some of that on quite liberally because we want it to cover. I might, you know what, I'm gonna scoop it on and then I'm probably gonna get a smaller spoon just to make sure it's all covered. Okay, so actually I'm noticing this one, I probably put a little too much on my first view, which is why, as I went down the line, total rookie mistake here, and this guy's a little shy. So just make sure you start off with little tiny amounts of your ganache when you're covering these. I get a smaller spoon actually so that I can get around these edges without making too much of a mess. I think it's okay to have some that are heavily coated with the chocolate and some that aren't, for that weird person that may or may not like a lot of chocolate. Okay. Looks so good. We're gonna put it in the freezer. I'm gonna start off with about 15 minutes because I really wanna make sure that the ganache gets solid enough for us to pop the whole brownie out of here. So we're gonna start with 15, may need about 20, depending on how cold your freezer is. But just don't do it too soon because you don't wanna pop the brownie out and then your ganache is just gonna get all over the place. Be patient. These are out of the freezer, ready to go. I ended up leaving them in there for about 30 minutes just to ensure that they were set up. Touching them, they're a little tacky. That's fine because we don't want them to be set up like solid chocolate. It's ganache, so we want it to be firm enough to set, but we don't want it to be solid. So I think we're there. I'm gonna use this butter knife to help me get the chocolate from around the sides that has stuck. You can see it's a little sticky, so I'm kind of using the silicone to help me, like by pulling away. Another great reason to use silicone for this recipe, because you can kind of move with it. So this was that one that we were a little shy on, but that still has a really nice layer, even for the least amount. And the brownie itself has come out pretty nice. All right, so these look great. They're ready to eat, but I just wanna add one more little touch before we serve them up. Wanna give them a little color with some powdered sugar. So let's get some of that here. And let's just dust the sides, just to make them a little more festive. And it is dark chocolate on the top, so a little more sweetness helps for some people who don't like really bitter chocolates. I'm a fan of dark chocolate. Some people really like milk chocolate, and you could totally make a milk chocolate topping on here as well. This is just my preference. Okay, I'm gonna give this a try. Pure chocolate. Take a look inside. It's cakey, but also gooey like a brownie. It's really soft. The chocolate on the top just adds that extra chocolate kick that who doesn't need? Gives it more texture. It's definitely a dark chocolate brownie. If you have someone in your life that you're gonna make this for and they are not a dark chocolate fan, you can definitely make a milk chocolate ganache. You have to try this recipe. You will not regret it. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos. Thanks for watching. See ya.